Greetings, hatchlings. Welcome to the first flipped classroom video of 2019 under a riveting subject called key signatures. And for some reason, at every age level, whether it's fifth grade all the way through high school, key signatures are honestly tricky, and some are more tricky than others. But more than that, some instruments deal with them earlier than other instruments. And so naturally, some players become used to reading them and applying them to their music, and other instruments that end up encountering them later on in middle school end up struggling with them a little bit. And so I thought it would be a great idea to use a flipped classroom video in an environment that you can control, in a atmosphere that would be quiet and peaceful with no distraction, for me to go over key signatures and one other subject, that being accidentals. Why would I teach them together? Well, that's because they work hand in hand. And so what I've got for you is some music on the board, and I'm going to be using it for a little bit, but I'm also going to be using my marker board as well. But I want to go ahead and let you see that this looks insane. This is actually a saxophone quartet video game medley starting with The Legend of Zelda. And so I found something a little fun to use as my example, but more than that, I found a saxophone ensemble so that you could see different key signatures at the same time. The neat thing about the saxophone family is they're not all in the same key. Thus is the problem with reading band music. Sometimes, actually all the time, the flute's key signature is never going to look the same as the saxophone key signature, unless the composer's requiring you to read only accidentals, that is. But on normal band music, and most of the time, the largest percentage of the time, the clarinet key signature looks different than the tuba key signature, which looks different than the French horn key signature. And so from a director's standpoint, we can't just stand on the box and say, guys, this is in the key signature. And it worked for everyone because it's different for everyone. So that's a long explanation of why it's important that we all understand what key signatures are and what they mean for us in music. Why it's more important, honestly, than any other capacity of music is to understand it in this situation, because you are going to be rubbing with other musicians in the pitch that you decide to play. So let's go ahead and check out the board here. The thing that I'm going to tell you is that this piece is actually arranged in the key of B flat. That's going to look crazy to you if you're a flute player. That's because your key of B flat usually has B flats and E flats, but we'll get to that in a moment. What I want you to do is I want you to notice the beginning of the lines. Now, we are not looking at the very beginning measure 1. If we were, in fact, you would notice that we have our clef, just like we do in every other spot on every other line. But we also have our time signature. And our time signature always deals with numbers. So when friends yell out, 4-4, when I say, what key is this piece in? It's totally wrong. Time signatures deal with numbers, always. 4-4, 2-4, common time, 3-4. Those are our normal ones that we encounter. There are others, but we'll leave it there for now. But this piece is in 4-4. That is the time signature. They don't have to put that on every line, but what they do put on every line for us is the key signature. Now, it's not like composers put a box and they say, okay, key signature. That's not what they do. What they do is they simply put sharps. That is not a hashtag. That is a sharp. Or flats next to the clef. So we'll see that the alto sax 2 line right here shows a sharp on the 5th line. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And those sharps and flats that show up there mean exactly the note that they're sitting on. And so they operate like a note when they're used in the key signature, because they're showing you which note is affected. So for the alto saxes, as you'll see in this piece, they are required every time they have an F to play F sharp. every single time they have an F to play F sharp, as we see here. The composer tells us what's required of us at the beginning, and it's different on every piece. Different scales use different sets of notes. So different keys use different sets of notes, and that's why we practice scales. But there's one other thing that can happen. Let's take a look at the tenor sax line. The tenor sax line doesn't show any of these sharps or flats that I told you would be shown in a key signature. In fact, there's nothing next to that treble clef. Trumpets and clarinets, this is you typically from 5th grade all the way until about 7th grade. Usually you don't see changing key signatures as a 5th or 6th grader. But the case here is not weird. It's simply that there are no sharps and flats for the tenor sax. I know some of you might see some things going on over here, and we're going to get to them in just a moment. But at first, I just want to establish that there are no sharps and flats here. And that is still telling us something. That's telling the tenor saxes and anyone else that ever sees a key signature like that all the notes will be played natural, meaning they will be played in their normal version, like the white keys on a piano. Let's go ahead and look at some of these other lines. Still, the same thing, the same thing. Altos have F sharp, bari sax, you'll notice, has the same key signature as them. They're in the same key. But the tenor sax, nothing in it. I could show you other scores of other music. For example, let's take a look at this trumpet music for I Heard the Bells on Christmas Day. You're going to notice that now you're seeing a sharp in their key signature, and that it's at the beginning of each line. The composer reminds them which notes are affected by the key signature. But let's find one that would hold some flats. Let's find one that would hold some flats. Do, 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 do. Let's take a look over here at this trombone music for the same piece. The trombone music shows a flat symbol on the second line. So every B that the trombones would encounter in this piece would be told to play as B flat because it's in the key signature. Now, I did tell you that there's one other thing, and I debated putting it in a separate video, but I am going to keep it in the same video. Another thing that composers can use to change notes when they want certain things to sound a certain way is they can use accidentals. And an accidental is a sharp, flat, or a natural. This looks like a natural, or this is what a natural looks like. A natural means normal. Okay? Flat, sharp, or a natural that happens in the music that we were not warned about at the beginning in the key signature. That's called an accidental, like an accident, only it's not an accident because the composer did it on purpose. So let's go back to look at those spots that I put a dash and said, don't worry about them right now. Let's take a look at what we have here. Lots of accidentals, lots and lots of accidentals. And so the composer initially told us that all Fs would need to be played as F sharp. But I would like you to take a look at what happens right here on the very first note in that measure. The altos have a B, but there is a flat symbol next to it. That means that that note is to be played as B flat. But the accidental rule is that that flat would last for the whole measure. So we have a flat right here, and that's going to apply to this B as well. And that's also going to apply to this B as well. That's the accidental rule. Let's find one that's not as confusing. Let's take a look at this measure right here. No accidentals. Everything's normal, normal, normal. Uh-oh. They put a flat next to that E right there. We were not warned about that in the key signature, yet we have a flat symbol affecting that note right there. So that would need to be played as E flat. I told you about the accidental rule up here. We're going along in the music to the next measure. We have an E that pops up, but it is a new measure. There's no flat next to that E like there was right here. So that will be played as E natural. This one would be E flat, not just E. That's a completely different note. And this one would be played E. I'm going to take a moment and find one more spot. Let's find a natural symbol. We don't see those as much. Ooh, check out the bari sax line right here. We know that the key signature told us to play all Fs as F sharp, But right here, this natural symbol is going to cancel out F sharp, and you're going to play F natural instead. That is another use of an accidental. So let's go over here to the side of the marker board, away from the music for a moment, because I just want to recap what I've talked about with you, okay? So we have key signature, not to be confused with time signature. The key signature tells us the rules for the piece in regards to what notes are affected by the sharps or flats at the beginning, or if it's empty, that we are playing all naturals the whole time. Rule for the whole piece, unless you come across an accidental, which is in fact not an accident. It seems like an accident because it pops up, but it is a sharp, a flat, or a natural that pops up in the music that we were not warned about at the beginning. The accidental rule says that when one of those pop up in a measure, it applies to the entire measure. And the next measure that comes up, if there's not another accidental in there, then it's just the normal version. I want to show you one more thing while I have your attention. I'm going to come over here to the piano, and I'm going to show you the piano keys as I talk to you about it. Hopefully you can see it pretty good. I think you can. So C, D, E, F, G, A, B, C. Those are all natural versions of the notes. I just want you to hear what flats and sharps do to notes. So a sharp raises a note a half step. Check this out. Here's C natural, also known as C normal, like I just referenced over there. A C sharp would sound like this. Weird. Sharps raise notes a half step. It makes them a half step higher. And so if you were to tell me that a note's name was C when it's actually supposed to be C sharp, not the same note, two different notes. So we have to know how to apply key signatures to the music and how to apply accidentals to our music. So C, C sharp, two very different notes. What about some flats? Let's find a B. That's a B natural. What about a B flat? A flat lowers a note by a half step. B flat is a half step lower than B natural. Two very different notes. B normal, also known as B natural. B flat, a half step lower. That's it for today, guys. That is video number 1. I kind of combined key signatures and accidentals into the same video. Hopefully that helps you understand them both. They definitely work together. They are not exactly the same concept, but they both deal with how notes are affected in music, what composers intend for them to be. And hopefully we'll have a little bit more understanding on how they operate, and we can be a little more successful on our note accuracy in our music. The chairs miss you. And I miss you. I will see you soon. I hope the video helps.